It's Eugenia, and I'm back to talk about another movie. Shocker. This one is called Two Lovers. It's a 2008 film by director James Gray, who recently came out with Armageddon Time. Prior to that, he did Ad Astra and Lost City of Z and The Immigrant and We Own the Night and The Yards and Little Odessa. I think that just about covers it. You're welcome. I've seen pretty much all his films outside of Little Odessa and Ad Astra. I began to watch Ad Astra and then I could not finish watching Ad Astra. I will attempt it another time later. I also have not seen Little Odessa, but I do want to see. But he thinks it's not one of his good films. He has been on record saying he doesn't like that film. But you know what? Who knows? I might like it, so I'm still going to give it a shot. But yeah, Two Lovers is my favorite James Gray film. I think it's a masterpiece. It's a portrait of a person who is so malformed, so life has deformed him basically, emotionally, physically. Has scars from an attempted suicide. It seems he's attempted suicide many times. When we meet him, he attempts suicide. He jumps off of a pier in Brighton Beach. The movie stars Joaquin Phoenix, Gwyneth Paltrow, Vanessa Shaw, and oh my God, what's her name? Bergman, the Bergman child, Isabella Rossellini, and another actor who's very good, who's been in some other stuff, but I can't remember his name right now, who plays his dad, Ruben. And basically, Joaquin is living with his parents. He is a God knows how old man who's living with his parents. I'm guessing mid-30s. Although 40s wouldn't be a shock. I wonder how old he was when he was in the film. How old was Joaquin Phoenix? This is good. I'm going to look this up mid-review. Why not? Okay, he's 48 now, 2008. 1974, 84, 94, 2004. He was 30. Oh, he was 34. Okay, so a man in his mid-30s, living with his parents. He had a former engagement with a woman that they broke it up. And yeah, he's living in a room. He doesn't even have his own computer. They share a family computer. There's one scene where he's always doing things under the nose of his parents like a child. And it's the saddest thing to see in the world. He's rushing into the living room to buy tickets to San Francisco and trying to play it off like he's not doing anything while his parents are in other rooms. Because it's a grown man without a laptop. He works for his father in his laundromat business. They're selling the business to another Jewish family who have a grown daughter played by Vanessa Shaw, who for some completely mysterious reason is really into Joaquin Phoenix in this. I understand why a woman would be into Joaquin Phoenix, but I don't necessarily understand why a woman would be into Joaquin Phoenix as Leonard, the character he plays in this film, because he is extremely childlike, strange and sad, and listen, it hits a little too close to home for me, unfortunately, because I I'm a lonely person, and he plays I think it's one of the most melancholy films and portrayals of loneliness, of just bone, soul deep aloneness and sadness that I have seen. I've seen enough films, and this one's up there as like just this man, even when he's around people, he is just in his own head. He is unhappy. He feels like he has nothing. And he latches onto the character of Gwyneth Paltrow, who is shockingly good in her role in this film. She very much works in the film. I imagine her as like this kind of Polish maybe woman or something like that, because they're both living on Brighton Beach. It's almost a science fiction, because the concept of Joaquin Phoenix and Gwyneth Paltrow living anywhere within the confines of Brighton Beach is frankly speculative science fiction. Like, it's not, I can't picture it. It's like that film Kira with Michelle Pfeiffer, where she also lives in that area, and like her mother dies when she's in her when Michelle is in her mid-40s, and like she assumes her mother's identity, and she's also this malformed sad. I don't buy that one at all. I'm sorry, but Kira is just Kyra. Look it up. She has this sex scene with Kiefer Sutherland. For some reason, Michelle Pfeiffer got really upset that they included that scene in the film, even though it's a good scene. So there was a whole like to-do with that film. But it kind of flew under the radar, which is insane. Like, imagine a movie with Michelle Pfeiffer back when Michelle Pfeiffer was like a big thing, flying completely under the radar. But yeah, no, so it made me think of something like Kira, where like they put these people who are just they're just a little too pretty. Well, maybe not Gwyneth Paltrow. There's plenty of pretty women, pretty Russian, Eastern European women who live on Brighton Beach, but it's just a little stretches like, I've been to Brighton Beach. I haven't seen anyone who looks like Joaquin Phoenix on Brighton Beach. I've seen people who maybe act like Joaquin Phoenix in Two Lovers, but not who look like him. He's an attractive man. And Gwyneth Paltrow, maybe. There's enough tall, blonde, skinny bitches who run around Brighton Beach, so that could maybe fly. But no, the film, it's just a sad movie. There's this resonant, in my Letterboxd review, I said it was painting with melancholy. Painting in the color of melancholy. And I don't know if that's like a pretentious way to describe it, but like, to me, that's what it feels like. He is painting these images with the color of sadness. And it might, like, there might not be anything particularly visually special about the film. Like, it's pretty formalist. In fact, when you think about James Gray, all his films are pretty formalist. He's like, as far as today goes, he's like the last formalist director. Like, he makes movies in pure classical narrative. You know, shot, reverse shot, continuity the way it's supposed to be. That's his deal. And he's copying he's like a 60s, 70s bitch, James Gray. You know, he loves Friedkin. He loves Coppola, clearly The Godfather. All his films are kind of trying to be The Godfather in some sense. They're all in some sense about family. Kubrick, you know. He's like those guys, for Sidney Lumet, John Schlesinger, how do you say that? John Schlesinger? I'm going to have a stroke. But But he's a real, like, throwback as a director to American New Wave cinema in the 70s and 60s. But, like, formalist, you know. He's not doing anything, like, super innovative with the form. He's very much a storyteller rather than a aesthetician. Like, he's not Quentin Tarantino. He's not trying to splatter blood on the walls or anything like that. He's not playing with time like Chris Nolan, even though Chris Nolan bores me to fucking death. I take a James Gray movie over a Nolan film, like, literally. If you put a gun to my head and were like, pick a Chris Nolan film, I'd be like, could I pick a James Gray film instead, please? Because I can't with Nolan. But and there's something interesting about James Gray. Darren Aronofsky is like his evil double. He is like, there should be a Black Swan, but it's about James Gray and Darren Aronofsky. They're almost the same guy. They're literally almost the same guy, but Aronofsky is Mila Kunis in that film, and James Gray, I guess, is Natalie Portman. They're both these Jews from New York, around the same age, started around the same time, have a similar kind of thing in their films going on, but like Darren Aronofsky figured out how to be in demand, and James Gray figured out how to just have a career. Like, although I've listened to some interviews with James Gray, and he said he's been offered, you know, some pretty big films that he's turned down. So in one way, I guess it's his decision to be little known, because he was offered, what was he offered? Devil's Own with Brad Pitt. He was offered Good Will Hunting, I think he said. He's being offered films, you know, but he decides, like, all his films, I think, deal with these ethnic American families and people who are lonely. Outside of City of Z and Ad Astra, that's his subject matter. City of Z, I liked. I did like City of Z. It was like his Apocalypse Now, basically. And I don't usually like Charlie Hunnam, and I'm not a big Robert Pattinson stan outside of The Lighthouse, which I thought he was very good in that. But Lost City of Z is an interesting film. I don't know if I've rewatched it more than once, but I would be interested to see it again. But yeah, James Gray, his two best films to me are Two Lovers and Armageddon Time, because I feel like they're the movies that are closest to him in many ways. And I really do like We Own the Night. I enjoy We Own the Night as well. One of the best opening sequences in any film. Eva Mendes to that song, walking in that sex scene. Whew, shit, that was hot. But yeah, Two Lovers, you know, it doesn't have any really super erotic scenes. It doesn't have any violence really, except the violence towards oneself, hatred towards oneself. And not much really happens in the film. It's just like about this dude who like is stuck between one woman who, like a manic Shiksa dream girl played by Gwyneth Paltrow, who he becomes obsessed with because she has blonde hair, I guess. And this other woman played by Vanessa Shaw, who's giving Orthodox Jewish with the hair, with the dark long hair. And so he's not really interested in one woman, and he's chasing after this other more broken woman who he relates to in a deeper way. And it doesn't work out with her, so he basically lands on his second choice, who's Vanessa Shaw, who comes with a package deal. He's going to be, you know, operating a laundry for the rest of his life and having Jewish babies with Vanessa Shaw. Sort of a Jewish man's Dante's Inferno, really. Faced with a choice between a mentally ill Shiksa goddess and a stable, beautiful Jewish woman, basically purgatory is ending up with the stable, beautiful Jewish woman. One thing that's shocking to me about Two Lovers is how even though he's depressed, he sleeps through most of the day, he's tried to commit suicide multiple times. You know, he's on these medications, he lives with his parents, he doesn't really have a job outside of like hanging around his dad's laundromat. And yet he manages to get in a lot of action with women. Like, one woman makes brother zones him, not even friend zones, but brother zones him. Another woman is in love with him for no apparent reason, and he's having sex with her in his childhood bed. It's all very distressing, to be honest. Like, even though nothing happens, a lot does happen. Because when you consider someone who's that depressed, I don't think they're getting that much action. But I guess if you're a depressed man, you still get more action than a depressed woman. I don't know. But anyway, the film hurts me deep inside. It's a sad, beautiful film. It's a 5. I give that film 5 stars. And now I just want to talk about Armageddon Time a little quicker. To me, Armageddon Time was the most genuine, beautiful film this year. And the fact that not even one award, not a Golden Globe, not a fucking BAFTA, not a Oscar, not even an Independent Spirit Award, like they completely shut that film out. He wasn't even nominated, I think, for Directors Guild, or like no award, which to me is insane. And maybe he was overshadowed by The Fabelmans. Like maybe there's only room for one Jewish man's family saga, coming of age story. But damn, like if Armageddon Time came out at any other time except for this one, which interestingly enough, it's aptly named, it would have been one of the most lauded films. And here's what's, I think, why James Gray is so overlooked today. He's like an artifact from the past. He's not retro or anything. He's just a genuine 70s spirit. He's a soul that resides in the heyday of Jewish auteurist vision that dominated the 70s when someone like Barbra Streisand could be a sex symbol. That wouldn't really go today. You know, when Mel Brooks was king and Woody Allen and like, you know, the 70s were a good time for Jews. And those days are gone. And James Gray is still living in that time. And I think that's why, even though he's been nominated for the Palme d'Or a bunch of times, he still hasn't even won, not even in Europe. I mean, when you're big in Europe, I know James Gray is bigger in Europe, but when you're even overlooked to a certain extent in Europe, you're in trouble. And it's not that James Gray's in trouble. Like, he's a working director. He has my dream career. He makes movies nobody sees, but keeps getting money somehow to make movies. But yeah, Armageddon Time, nary a nomination in sight, not a one. And I'll be honest, I think of a lot of mediocre films, and it's not even in the discussion of being snubbed. No one's like, oh yeah, Armageddon Time was snubbed. No one's even thinking about Armageddon Time. And that's such a carefully, beautifully made piece of fucking cinema art. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous film. I was crying. It was just, the performance by Anthony Hopkins was just transcendent. There's so many fucking levels to that film. You can write several papers about what happens in that film. There's so many layers to it. There's so much depth of feeling and story and themes in that film. And yet nothing. And, instead we have everything all at once or whatever. People are mad that the Woman King isn't like, who gives a shit about the Woman King? These are they're mediocre. mediocrity is being lauded because it's diverse, and true art is being ignored because it's made by a Jew. That's my opinion. He's a Jew out of time. If he had like a genre bent, like he got a little bit of notice in Ad Astra because it's a space movie with Brad Pitt and a chimpanzee, I think, right? So he got a little bit of attention for that one. Even though to me that movie was unwatchable for some reason. Maybe I just need to give it another shot. But his more emotionally poignant, better film with his movies that are better told, The Immigrants, which is also a beautiful film, Two Lovers, Armageddon Time. They're ignored. We Own the Night got some play because it's a crime genre film, and maybe The Yard's got a little bit of play because it's also this big saga family drama in the vein of The Godfather with crime. Robert Duvall is there too. But like his more personal films that aren't a genre and don't have the benefit of whatever Darren Aronofsky's doing. For example, Darren Aronofsky came out with The Whale, but it has a gimmick. It has this, comeback performance by Brendan Fraser, much like the comeback performance he gave Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. It has this like grotesque angle that James Gray doesn't have because he doesn't need it to tell a good story. I still have to watch The Whale, so I can't comment on The Whale. In fact, in the next few days, I'm going to try to watch every Oscar-nominated film in a major category. So I'll try to watch all the Best Picture, Actor, Supporting Actor, Director, and Screenplay films. I will do my best and do a review. We'll see if I can make that happen in my extremely busy schedule where I don't do anything. But yeah, he's just born in this weird diversity quota era where art is dying because it's all like, everything's about algorithm. Algorithm dictates what art gets seen and what art doesn't get seen. Diversity quotas elevate people who should not be given a platform because, their mediocrity is zeitgeisty and their skin color is in demand, and good films, good art gets completely overlooked. And that's why I think James Gray and Armageddon Time this year were just, and also he had that angle, like that race relations angle that everyone found uncomfortable because it was honest and genuine, but it was told by James Gray. So they were like, oh, it's a white Jewish, not even Jewish, it's like a white guilt apologia film, which is the stupidest fucking reading of Armageddon Time you can possibly have. It's a very Jewish film. It's about how much Jewish identity in this country is liminal and how uncertain it is, and how Jews are basically always in survival, oriented in survivalism. Sometimes, and it's that guilt of not even it's Jewish guilt, if anything. There's so many levels to that film, and to just reduce it to like a race relations film told sloppily by, a white guy is the stupidest take you could have on that movie. But I think anyone with that take didn't really look past the title of the film. They're just like fucking stupid. So yeah, I think it's an outrage that Armageddon Time wasn't even in the awards conversation. If anyone was even mildly cognizant anymore of what actual art looked like in cinema, Armageddon Time would be nominated and would win Best Picture this year. But so yeah, James Gray is a man out of time, unfortunately, and Darren Aronofsky is his Black Swan, Mila Kunis, dark Jew twin, his doppelganger who gets all the accolades, while James Gray is relegated to obscurity. Because Darren Aronofsky has this genre angle and freak show angle on some of it. He has gimmicks. Darren Aronofsky has gimmicks. James Gray just has good storytelling, and clearly gimmicks in this day and age are much preferred to storytelling and artistry. But yeah, what else was I going to say? You should listen to his interview with Mark Maron on WTF Pod, because I thought it was a very interesting interview between two grumpy old Jewish men who are stuck in a certain era of American cinema and cultural life, and that no longer exists. And it's the two of them kind of bemoaning that fact. And I'm with them. I'm also impressed how Mark Maron has managed to turn the idea of a conversation between two old crotchety Jewish men at a little table by the, boardwalk in Brooklyn into like an podcast empire. He's turned conversations like old men have with each other around a table playing dominoes into a fucking career. Props to that guy. Because he's like, his level of humor, like he's about as funny as any crotchety old Jewish uncle, Like he's mid. His Jewish humor is very mid. It's nothing special, He's not a Louis C.K. And I don't mean to turn this into a Mark Maron bashing. I'm a fan of Mark Maron. I just want to say the truth while I have this microphone in front of me. He's not a Louis C.K. who's like doing incredible things as a comedian, who's like basically a prophet comedian. He's so fucking transcendent in the art of comedy. Maron's not transcendent. Maron is very middling. Funny, amusing, but middling. He's not doing anything special. And I think he knows that, but who knows? Maybe he doesn't anymore. They're all pretty much high on their own supply. But, what the fuck am I talking about? Oh yeah, James Gray. I think he's making a TV series about Norman Mailer next, which is an interesting move. I'm sure that'll get him a lot more fans. But, good for him. He's made a career of just doing things he wants to do. I applaud all those people. But he's truly talented. He's a formalist, classical narrative, American auteur, and he's a master. Like he's one of the last real masters. Like the guy knows what he's doing. And he's just not in the wrong era. If he was, in the Sidney Lumet era, the Dog Day Afternoon era, he'd be doing great. But he's just in our cultural, we're basically in the medieval, we're in the dark ages culturally, I think, again. We have fallen into a very bleak era for thinking, intellect, art, culture, society. We've let the machines take over. We've let ourselves become machines and lost our soul in the process. So that's my review of Two Lovers, which is a very soulful film, which is what I love about it. And I think it's supposed to be based on a short story by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I should look that up. Let me look it up. I give that film 5 stars, by the way. 5 out of 5 for Two Lovers. It's a fucking masterpiece. Let's take a look here. What is it based on? Give me the fucking tea. Yeah. Taking its inspiration from Fyodor Dostoevsky's 1848 short story, White Nights. Белые ночи. Yep. I need to read that. The narrator is a young man living in St. Petersburg who suffers from loneliness. He gets to know and falls in love with a young woman, but the love remains unrequited as the woman misses her lover with whom she is finally reunited. Yep, that's Two Lovers. He just transports it from St. Petersburg to Brooklyn, which, you know, there's Brooklyn, I think, is one of the most sad places on the planet Earth. Like, the soul of Brooklyn is just melancholic and depressing in a way that I think almost correlates to a major Russian city like St. Petersburg or Moscow. Like, there's a depression hanging in the air in Brooklyn that's not unlike the depression that hangs in the air in a Russian metropolis. So it's a good substitute. With that said, I need to read that short story by Dostoevsky. Maybe you should read it too. Watch Two Lovers if you haven't. If you disagree with me, let me know in the fucking comments, I guess. All right. Peace.